Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribers. At 2,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The void of space shimmered momentarily before the Zalorian mothership emerged from hyperspace, its colossal form dominating the starry expanse. The ship, a marvel of alien engineering, boasted sleek metallic curves interwoven with intricate circuitry that pulsed with an eerie blue light. It was the pride of the Zalorian fleet, a symbol of their unchallenged supremacy. Supreme Commander Zalcar stood at the helm, his presence commanding and formidable. His blue exoskeleton gleamed under the dim lights of the bridge, highlighting the intricate patterns etched into his skin, each one a testament to his numerous victories. His piercing orange eyes, a hallmark of his species, glowed with an intensity that spoke of both intelligence and ruthlessness. "Activate the planetary scanners," Zalcar commanded, his voice resonating through the ship's vast command center. "I want a comprehensive analysis of the defenses of this new world." Vroka, his second-in-command, a figure of lithe strength and agility, responded with a swift nod. Vroka's silver lines, unlike Zalcar's more subdued etchings, shimmered like mercury, reflecting the ambient light. "At once, Supreme Commander," he replied, his fingers dancing over the controls. As the ship's advanced sensors began their sweep, a detailed holographic display of Earth materialized before them. The planet, with its swirling blue oceans and verdant land masses, seemed almost serene, a stark contrast to the chaos the Zalorians intended to unleash. Zalcar scrutinized the data pouring in. Earth's technology appeared rudimentary compared to the Zalorians' advanced arsenal. There were no planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms, merely a collection of satellites and terrestrial military installations. It seemed almost too easy. "Pathetic," Zalcar muttered, a hint of disdain coloring his tone. "They have no idea what is coming." On the surface of Earth, life continued in blissful ignorance of the impending doom. In major cities, people went about their daily routines, unaware that they were being observed by a force unlike any they had ever encountered. The Zalorians had perfected the art of invasion, and Earth was merely their latest target. "Supreme Commander," Vroka interrupted Zalcar's thoughts, "our troops are ready for deployment. Shall we proceed with the standard incursion protocols?" Zalcar considered for a moment. The element of surprise was always their greatest asset. "Yes. Initiate the incursion. Begin with major population centers to maximize the impact. We will crush their spirit before they have a chance to mount any significant resistance." The Zalorian fleet descended upon Earth with surgical precision. Massive dropships broke through the atmosphere, their descent masked by the cover of night. Cities across the globe were soon under the shadow of these imposing vessels, their size and advanced design inspiring both awe and terror. In New York City, the largest of the dropships landed in Central Park, its arrival causing widespread panic. People fled in every direction, their screams echoing through the concrete canyons of the metropolis. From the ship emerged the Zalorian soldiers, their exosuits glinting ominously under the city lights. Each soldier was a fearsome sight, their armor a blend of organic and synthetic materials, making them nearly impervious to conventional weaponry. Zalcar, descending last from the dropship, surveyed the chaos with satisfaction. "Citizens of Earth," he announced, his voice amplified by the dropship speakers, "you are now subjects of the Zalorian Empire. Surrender peacefully, and your lives will be spared. Resist and face annihilation." Instead of the immediate capitulation Zalcar expected, a bold voice responded through the city's emergency broadcast system. "This is General Marcus Briggs of the United Earth Defense Force. We will not surrender. You have underestimated humanity." Zalcar's eyes narrowed. "So they choose defiance," he said softly, more to himself than anyone else. "Very well. We shall see how long their courage lasts against the might of the Zalorians." The human's response had intrigued him. It had been a long time since any species had dared to defy the Zalorian might. Perhaps this conquest would be more interesting than he had anticipated. As Zalcar ordered his troops to advance, he couldn't shake the feeling that Earth might hold more surprises. The human's resolve was unexpected, and if there was one thing Zalcar respected, it was an opponent who could offer a worthy challenge. The initial skirmishes in New York set the tone for the conflict. Zalorian soldiers moved with lethal efficiency, their weapons decimating any human forces that dared to confront them. Yet, amidst the chaos, small pockets of resistance began to form. General Briggs coordinated his forces with remarkable skill, utilizing the city's dense architecture to their advantage, launching ambushes and using guerrilla tactics to inflict damage on the invaders. Zalar watched from his command post, a mix of frustration and admiration building within him. These humans were not the helpless prey he had expected. Their ingenuity and tenacity were proving to be a significant obstacle. "Commander," Vroka approached, his expression one of concern. "The humans are adapting faster than anticipated. They are using their knowledge of the terrain to counter our advances." Zalar nodded, his mind racing with strategic calculations. "Then we must adapt as well. Deploy the hunter units. They are designed for tracking and eliminating resistance fighters in urban environments. We will not let these primitives outmaneuver us." As night fell over the city, the battle intensified. The hunter units, specialized Zalorian soldiers equipped with advanced tracking systems and stealth technology, began to comb through the streets and buildings, seeking out human resistance cells. Their presence added a new layer of terror to the conflict, as they seemed to appear and disappear at will, striking with deadly precision. Despite the overwhelming odds, the human spirit remained unbroken. Stories of heroism and sacrifice spread among the survivors, bolstering their resolve. In hidden bunkers and makeshift command centers, plans were drawn up, and counterattacks were launched. For Zalar, this was becoming a war of attrition, unlike any he had faced before. The humans' defiance was a constant thorn in his side, but it also kindled a grudging respect. He began to see the humans not merely as subjects to be conquered, but as worthy adversaries. As dawn approached, the city lay in ruins, but the battle was far from over. Both sides prepared for another day of conflict, their resolve unwavering. For the first time in his long career, Zalar felt the thrill of uncertainty. The humans were an enigma, and he was determined to solve it. In the depths of his command center, Zalar stared at the holographic display of Earth, his mind plotting the next move. This war was unlike any other, and he knew that the outcome would shape the future of both their species. The humans had shown they were more than meets the eye, and Zalar was ready to face the challenge head-on. As he stood there, lost in thought, a single word echoed through his mind, a word that had become the mantra of this unexpected war: adapt. And so, with steely determination, Zalar prepared to face the new day, ready to adapt and overcome, just as the humans had done. The dawn broke over a world in turmoil. Cities across the globe were gripped by the sudden arrival of the Zalorians, their alien ships casting long shadows over the urban landscapes. The initial shock had given way to chaos as governments scrambled to respond to the unprecedented threat. News networks broadcasted images of devastation and conflict, while leaders urged their citizens to remain calm and resilient. In New York City, the epicenter of the invasion, General Marcus Briggs stood amidst the remnants of his command center. The underground bunker buzzed with frantic activity as officers relayed orders and coordinated defenses. Despite the dire circumstances, Briggs exuded a calm authority that inspired confidence in his troops. "Status report," Briggs barked, his eyes scanning the room. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, a seasoned officer with a reputation for her tactical acumen, stepped forward. "General, the Zalorians have established a foothold in Central Park and are spreading out across the city. Our forces are engaged on multiple fronts, but we're holding the line for now." Briggs nodded, his mind racing through the options. "We need to buy time for the scientists to analyze the Zalorian technology, focus on hit-and-run tactics, use the city's infrastructure to our advantage. We know these streets better than they do." Mitchell saluted and moved to relay the orders. The human resistance was determined to make every street, every building a battlefield that the invaders would regret stepping into. Above ground, the streets were a chaotic battleground. Zalorian soldiers, with their advanced weaponry and armored exosuits, moved through the city with mechanical precision. Their orange eyes glowed with a cold, calculating intelligence, scanning for any sign of resistance. But the humans were not idle prey. Small groups of soldiers, aided by civilians, launched ambushes from hidden vantage points. They used the rubble of collapsed buildings and the maze of alleyways to their advantage, striking swiftly before melting back into the shadows. Captain David Reynolds, a veteran of numerous conflicts, led one such unit. His squad had taken position in an abandoned high-rise, using the elevated view to their advantage. As a patrol of Zalorian soldiers passed below, Reynolds gave the signal. "On my mark," he whispered into his communicator. 3, 2, 1, now!" A hail of gunfire and homemade explosives rained down on the unsuspecting aliens. The Zalorians, momentarily caught off guard, scrambled to return fire. Reynolds' team moved with practiced efficiency, their movements a choreographed dance of survival and resistance. Despite the initial success, the Zalorians quickly adapted. Their suits absorbed much of the damage, and their return fire was swift and deadly. One of Reynolds' men, Private Jackson, was hit, his body crumpling to the ground. "Fall back," Reynolds ordered, his voice strained but determined. The squad retreated through the building, leaving behind a trail of destruction and confusion. Back in the command center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team worked tirelessly. They had managed to capture a damaged Zalorian exosuit, and now it lay on an operating table, its intricate systems exposed. Rodriguez's eyes gleamed with a mix of exhaustion and excitement as she probed the alien technology. "There's a neural interface here," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "If we can disrupt the signal, we might be able to disable their suits." Her assistant, Dr. Ahmed Khan, looked up from his own work. "How do you propose we do that?" Rodriguez didn't hesitate. "EMP devices. If we can create portable electromagnetic pulse generators, we can use them to disrupt the Zalorian suits in the field." Khan nodded, already considering the implications. "I'll start working on the prototype." As the day wore on, the human resistance continued to adapt and fight back. Skirmishes erupted across the city, each one a testament to human ingenuity and resolve. The Zalorians, despite their superior technology, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to be easily subdued. In the heart of the Zalorian command ship, Supreme Commander Zalar monitored the situation with growing frustration. The humans' resilience was proving to be a significant obstacle. He turned to Vroka, his expression grim. "These humans are more resourceful than we anticipated," Zalar admitted. "We need to adjust our strategy, focus on their communication hubs and supply lines, isolate their forces and cut off their support." Vroka nodded. "Understood, Supreme Commander. I will oversee the operations personally." As the sun set on the second day of the invasion, both sides prepared for the next phase of the conflict. The humans, driven by a fierce determination to protect their home, continued to adapt and evolve their tactics. The Zalorians, recognizing the challenge before them, prepared to unleash their full might. In a hidden bunker beneath the city, General Briggs gathered his officers for a briefing. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we can't afford to let up. Dr. Rodriguez's team is close to a breakthrough. We need to keep the pressure on the Zalorians and give her the time she needs." Colonel Mitchell nodded, her expression resolute. "We'll keep hitting them where it hurts, General. They may have the technology, but we have the heart." Briggs allowed himself a rare smile. "Let's show these invaders what it means to face humanity. We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for our future." As the officers dispersed to carry out their orders, Briggs looked at the map of the city, now covered in markers representing both friend and foe. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but already it was clear. The Zalorians had underestimated the strength and resolve of humanity. The city of New York had become a war zone. Skyscrapers stood as charred skeletons, their once glittering facades now blackened by fire and explosions. The constant rattle of gunfire and the distant booms of heavy artillery created a dissonant symphony of conflict. Smoke hung thick in the air, mingling with the scent of burning metal and the acrid tang of destruction. Amidst the chaos, General Marcus Briggs moved through the makeshift command post, issuing orders with a steely determination. His mind was a whirlwind of tactical calculations, each decision a desperate attempt to turn the tide against the Zalorian onslaught. Despite the dire circumstances, his presence exuded a calm authority, a beacon of hope for his beleaguered troops. "Colonel Mitchell, status report," Briggs called out, his voice cutting through the din. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, her face smeared with grime and sweat, approached swiftly. "General, Our forces have managed to hold key positions in Midtown, but we're taking heavy casualties. The Zalorians are pushing hard, using their hunter units to root out our defenses." Briggs nodded grimly. "We need to keep them off balance. Initiate Operation Hydra. Have Captain Reynolds lead a strike team to disrupt their supply lines. We need to hit them where it hurts." Mitchell saluted, her eyes blazing with resolve. "Understood, sir. I'll relay the orders immediately." Outside, the streets were a labyrinth of rubble and debris. Zalorian soldiers, with their imposing exosuits and advanced weaponry, moved with mechanical precision, their orange eyes scanning for any sign of human resistance. Despite their technological superiority, they found themselves embroiled in a brutal urban warfare, a type of combat that played to the human strengths. Captain David Reynolds, leading his strike team through the twisted remains of a once bustling commercial district, communicated with his squad through hand signals. They were a small unit, but their knowledge of the city's layout gave them a crucial advantage. Reynolds' face was set in a mask of determination as he glanced at the holographic map on his wrist display. "Targets ahead," Reynolds whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant sounds of battle. "Remember, we're here to disrupt their supplies. Hit fast, hit hard, and get out." The team moved silently through the wreckage, their movements coordinated and precise. They approached a Zalorian supply convoy, its alien machines and vehicles stark against the ruins of human architecture. With a swift, practiced motion, Reynolds gave the signal to attack. Explosions rocked the area as the humans launched their assault. Zalorian soldiers scrambled to respond, but the humans' hit-and-run tactics left them reeling. The convoy was quickly engulfed in flames, supplies and equipment destroyed in a matter of minutes. Reynolds and his team vanished into the shadows, their mission accomplished. The Zalorians, caught off guard, were left to deal with the aftermath. This was the nature of the conflict, an unending series of skirmishes and counterattacks, each side striving for dominance. Back at the command center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team continued their relentless work. The captured Zalorian exosuit lay in pieces on the lab table, its inner workings exposed to human scrutiny. Rodriguez's eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but they burned with a fierce determination. "We've made progress," Rodriguez announced to her team. "The EMP devices are ready for deployment. These should disrupt the neural interfaces of their suits, rendering them vulnerable." Her assistant, Dr. Ahmed Khan, handed her a small cylindrical device. "It's not much, but it could turn the tide in our favor." Rodriguez nodded, her mind already racing ahead. "Get these to the front lines immediately. We need to give our soldiers every advantage we can." As the EMP devices were distributed to the human forces, a new phase of the battle began. Human soldiers, armed with the new technology, launched coordinated assaults on Zalorian positions. The devices worked as intended, disabling the exosuits and leveling the playing field. For the first time, the Zalorians found themselves on the defensive. Supreme Commander Zalkar, monitoring the battle from his command ship, watched the developments with a growing sense of frustration. The humans' resilience and adaptability were proving to be a significant challenge. He turned to Vroka, his expression hard. "These humans are more resourceful than we anticipated," Zalkar growled. "Deploy the Warlords. We need to crush their resistance before they gain any more ground." Vroka bowed his head. "Yes, Supreme Commander. I will oversee the deployment personally." The Warlords, elite Zalorian warriors, were the most feared units in their arsenal. Clad in heavily fortified armor and armed with devastating weaponry, they were the ultimate expression of Zalorian might. Their deployment signaled a shift in the conflict, an escalation that promised even greater destruction. As the Warlords descended upon New York, the battle reached a fever pitch. Human forces, bolstered by their newfound technology, fought with a desperation born of necessity. Skirmishes erupted in every corner of the city, each one a microcosm of the larger conflict. In the midst of the chaos, General Briggs received a transmission from Captain Reynolds. "General, the EMP devices are working, but the Zalorians have deployed their Warlords. We're holding them off, but we need reinforcements." Briggs clenched his jaw. "Hold the line, Captain. Reinforcements are on the way. We cannot afford to lose this position." As night fell over the city, both sides prepared for another grueling day of combat. The humans, driven by a fierce determination to protect their home, continued to adapt and evolve their tactics. The Zalorians, recognizing the challenge before them, prepared to unleash their full might. In the heart of the Zalorian command ship, Zalcar stared at the holographic display of the battlefield. The humans had shown themselves to be formidable opponents, and he was determined to break their spirit. This war was unlike any other he had fought, and he knew that the outcome would shape the future of both their species. As the battle for New York raged on, the stakes grew higher. Both sides were pushed to their limits, their fates intertwined in a brutal struggle for survival. The Zalorians, once considered invincible, had met their match in the tenacity and ingenuity of humanity. The outcome remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. The war had only just begun. The city of New York had transformed into a sprawling battlefield. The once vibrant streets were now littered with debris and the remnants of the conflict. Skyscrapers stood as battered sentinels, their facades pockmarked with the scars of war. Smoke billowed from countless fires, casting an eerie pall over the landscape. In the heart of the chaos, General Marcus Briggs moved through the Human Command Center, a makeshift fortress in the basement of a once luxurious hotel. The space was crowded with military personnel, the air thick with tension and the constant hum of activity. Monitors flickered with live feeds from the front lines, displaying the relentless advance of the Zalorian forces. "General Briggs, we've received new intel," Colonel Sarah Mitchell reported, her face set in grim determination. "The Warlords are pressing hard on our western flank. If we don't reinforce soon, we risk a complete collapse in that sector." Briggs nodded, his mind racing. "Send the 3rd Battalion to support the western flank. Tell them to use the EMP devices sparingly. We can't afford to run out." Mitchell saluted and hurried off to relay the orders. Briggs turned to the map laid out on the table before him, studying the shifting lines of battle. The situation was dire, but he refused to give in to despair. Above ground, the battle raged on with unrelenting ferocity. The Zalorian warlords, towering figures encased in impenetrable armor, moved through the city with a brutal efficiency. Their advanced weaponry cut through human defenses like a hot knife through butter, leaving destruction in their wake. Despite the overwhelming odds, human soldiers fought with a tenacity born of desperation and resolve. Small units launched guerrilla-style attacks, using the city's labyrinthine layout to their advantage. Captain David Reynolds led one such team, their mission to disrupt the Zalorian supply lines and sow chaos behind enemy lines. "Keep moving, stay low," Reynolds whispered to his squad as they navigated through the crumbling remains of an office building. The sound of distant explosions reverberated through the walls, a constant reminder of the ongoing conflict. The team reached their target, a Zalorian supply depot nestled in what had once been a bustling commercial plaza. Reynolds signaled for his team to spread out and take positions. With practiced precision, they set charges on key supply crates and vehicles. "On my mark," Reynolds murmured into his communicator. 3, 2, 1, detonate." A series of explosions rocked the depot, sending shockwaves through the area. The Zalorian guards, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. Reynolds and his team melted into the shadows, their mission accomplished. Back at the Human Command Center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team were on the brink of a breakthrough. The captured Zalorian exosuit lay disassembled on the table, its neural interface exposed to human scrutiny. Rodriguez's hands moved with practiced precision as she made final adjustments to a prototype EMP device. "This should do it," Rodriguez said, her voice tinged with excitement. "We've managed to increase the range and effectiveness of the EMP. It should be able to disable multiple suits at once." Her assistant, Dr. Ahmed Khan, nodded in agreement. "Let's get these to the front lines immediately. Every second counts." As the new EMP devices were distributed, the tide of battle began to shift. Human forces, armed with the enhanced technology, launched a series of coordinated assaults on Zalorian positions. The devices worked as intended, disabling the exosuits and leaving the Zalorian soldiers vulnerable. Supreme Commander Zalcar, observing the battlefield from his command ship, watched the developments with mounting frustration. The humans' resilience and adaptability were proving to be more formidable than he had anticipated. He turned to Vroka, his expression dark. "The humans have developed a countermeasure to our exosuits, Zalcar growled. "We must respond accordingly. Prepare the next wave of reinforcements and increase our offensive pressure. We cannot allow them to gain the upper hand." Vroka bowed his head. "Yes, Supreme Commander, I will see to it personally." As the Zalorian reinforcements descended upon the city, the conflict escalated to new heights. The humans, bolstered by their technological advancements, fought with renewed vigor. Skirmishes erupted across the city, each one a testament to the unyielding determination of the human spirit. In the midst of the chaos, General Briggs received a transmission from Colonel Mitchell. "General, we've identified a potential weak point in the Zalorian command structure. If we can take out their central communication hub, we could disrupt their entire operation." Briggs's eyes lit up with hope. "Do it. Assemble a strike team and hit that hub with everything we've got." Captain Reynolds was chosen to lead the critical mission. His team, armed with the latest EMP devices and an unwavering resolve, infiltrated the Zalorian command post. The building, a monolithic structure of alien design, loomed ominously against the darkened sky. "Stay sharp," Reynolds whispered as they approached the entrance. "We only get one shot at this." The team moved with silent precision, taking out guards and bypassing security systems. They reached the central communication hub, a room filled with alien machinery and glowing consoles. "Plant the charges and set the EMPs," Reynolds ordered. "We need to take this place down." As the team worked quickly, the building's alarms blared to life. Zalorian soldiers converged on their position, but Reynolds and his team held their ground, fighting off the attackers with fierce determination. "Detonate the charges," Reynolds shouted as the last of the EMPs were set. A series of explosions tore through the command post, followed by a massive electromagnetic pulse that fried the Zalorian communication systems. The resulting chaos was immediate and profound. Zalorian units across the city were thrown into disarray, their coordination shattered. Back at the human command center, a cheer erupted as the news came through. General Briggs allowed himself a rare moment of relief. "We've done it. We've finally turned the tide." Supreme Commander Zalcar, reeling from the loss of their communication hub, faced a sobering reality. The humans had not only resisted, but had struck a decisive blow against the Zalorian invasion. For the first time he felt a sliver of doubt creep into his mind. As the dawn broke over the war-torn city, the humans rallied, their spirits lifted by the recent victory. The battle was far from over, but they had proven that they were not merely survivors, they were fighters. The Zalorians, once considered invincible, had met their match in the unyielding resolve and ingenuity of humanity. The conflict had reached a turning point, and both sides prepared for the next phase of the war. The humans, driven by their fierce determination to protect their home, continued to adapt and evolve their tactics. The Zalorians, recognizing the challenge before them, braced themselves for a prolonged struggle. The fate of both species hung in the balance, their destinies intertwined in the crucible of battle. The city of New York was a stark contrast to its former glory. Once bustling with life and energy, it now lay in ruins, a testament to the ferocity of the ongoing battle. The sky was a permanent shade of grey, shrouded in smoke and ash. Streets that had been filled with the sounds of everyday life were now echoing with the harsh symphony of war, explosions, gunfire, and the cries of the wounded. General Marcus Briggs walked through the remnants of what had once been a vibrant city square, his boots crunching over broken glass and debris. He paused to survey the area, his heart heavy with the weight of the conflict. Every corner of the city bore the scars of battle, and the human toll was immense. Civilians caught in the crossfire had been evacuated to makeshift shelters, but many had not been so lucky. Colonel Sarah Mitchell approached, her face lined with exhaustion. "General, our troops are holding the line, but we're stretched thin. Casualties are mounting and supplies are running low." Briggs nodded solemnly. "I know, Sarah. We're all feeling the strain, but we have to keep pushing. We can't let up now, not when we're so close." Mitchell handed him a tablet with the latest reports. "We've managed to disrupt their command structure, but the Zalorians are relentless. They're regrouping and launching counterattacks. We need to find a way to break their momentum." Briggs studied the reports, his mind racing with possibilities. "What about Dr. Rodriguez's new EMP devices? Have they been distributed to all units?" "Yes, sir," Mitchell confirmed. "They're making a difference, But the Zalorians are adapting. They've started shielding their critical systems. We need a new strategy." Briggs looked out over the devastated city, a resolve hardening within him. "Then we'll have to hit them where it hurts the most. We need to target their command structure again, but this time we'll go after their leadership. We take out Supreme Commander Zalcar, and we might just tip the scales in our favor." The command center buzzed with activity as plans were drawn up for the next phase of the assault. Intelligence operatives had identified the location of the Zalorian command ship, anchored just outside the city limits. It was a daunting target, heavily fortified and surrounded by elite troops. But Briggs knew it was their best shot at ending the invasion. Captain David Reynolds, still recovering from the wounds he sustained during the last mission, volunteered to lead the strike team. His determination was unwavering, his eyes filled with a steely resolve. "I've faced these bastards before, General. Let me finish the job." Briggs clasped Reynolds' shoulder. "I trust you, David. But this mission is high risk. We need to be surgical about it. Get in, take out Zalcar, and get out. Our survival depends on it." As night fell, Reynolds and his team prepared for the assault. They moved through the shadows, using the cover of darkness to approach the Zalorian command ship. The air was thick with tension, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Inside the command ship, Supreme Commander Zalcar was a figure of composed fury. The setbacks he had faced were unprecedented, and the human's resilience continued to confound him. He stood in the command center, his orange eyes glowing with an intense focus as he issued orders to his subordinates. "Double our defenses around the perimeter. The humans will undoubtedly attempt another strike. We must be ready for them," Zalcar commanded, his voice a growl of frustration. Vroka, ever the loyal lieutenant, nodded. "Yes, Supreme Commander. Our forces are on high alert. We will not be caught off guard again." As the humans closed in, they encountered fierce resistance. The Zalorian defenses were formidable, but Reynolds and his team pressed on, using their EMP devices to disable enemy units and create openings. The clash of metal and the bursts of energy weapons lit up the night, a brutal dance of death and determination. Reynolds led his team through a series of corridors, their objective clear in his mind. They reached the central command chamber, where Zalcar stood surrounded by his elite guards. The room was a stark contrast to the chaos outside, a place of cold, calculated control. "Zalcar!" Reynolds shouted, stepping forward with his weapon raised. "Your reign of terror ends here." Zalcar turned slowly, his eyes locking onto Reynolds. "You humans are persistent, I'll give you that, but your defiance ends now." The battle that ensued was intense and brutal. Reynolds' team fought with everything they had, each moment a desperate struggle for survival. Zalcar proved to be a formidable opponent, his strength and combat prowess honed by countless battles. But the humans fought with a desperation and courage that came from defending their home. In a decisive moment, Reynolds managed to land a critical blow, his weapon striking a vulnerable point in Zalcar's armor. The Supreme Commander staggered, a look of shock and fury in his eyes. Taking advantage of the opening, Reynolds activated his EMP device, sending a pulse of energy that crippled Zalcar's systems. As Zalcar fell, the command center erupted in chaos. Vroka and the remaining Zalorian soldiers tried to rally, but the loss of their leader had thrown them into disarray. Reynolds' team pressed the advantage, securing the command chamber and transmitting the success back to General Briggs. "We did it, General," Reynolds said, his voice tinged with exhaustion and triumph. "Zalcar is down." Back at the human command center, cheers erupted as the news spread. Briggs allowed himself a rare smile of relief. "Well done, Captain. You've given us a fighting chance." The death of Supreme Commander Zalcar marked a turning point in the conflict. The Zalorian forces, deprived of their leader, began to falter. The human resistance seized the momentum, launching coordinated strikes that pushed the invaders back. But the cost of the victory was immense. The city lay in ruins, and the human toll was staggering. Civilians and soldiers alike bore the scars of the conflict, their lives forever changed by the brutal struggle for survival. As dawn broke over the ravaged city, General Briggs stood amidst the ruins, contemplating the future. The war was far from over, but they had struck a significant blow against their enemies. The humans had proven their resilience and ingenuity, standing firm against a seemingly invincible foe. In the heart of the Zalorian command ship, the remaining leaders convened, their expressions grim. Vrocka, now the acting commander, addressed his subordinates. "We underestimated these humans, but we cannot afford to make that mistake again. We must regroup and prepare for the next phase of the conflict." As the sun rose on a new day, both sides braced themselves for the battles yet to come. The humans, driven by their fierce determination to protect their home, continued to adapt and evolve their tactics. The Zalorians, recognizing the challenge before them, prepared for a prolonged struggle. The cost of war was high, but the fight for survival and freedom was far from over. The fate of both species hung in the balance, their destinies intertwined in the crucible of battle. The aftermath of the battle left New York City in a fragile state of uneasy calm. The towering skeletons of buildings cast long shadows over streets littered with the debris of war. Survivors huddled in makeshift shelters, sharing stories of loss and hope. Amidst this backdrop, General Marcus Briggs convened a critical meeting in the remnants of the command center, a room that had seen too many moments of despair and fleeting triumph. "General," Colonel Sarah Mitchell began, her voice heavy with fatigue, "our scouts report that the Zalorians are pulling back, regrouping. It seems Zalkar's death has thrown their command structure into disarray." Briggs nodded thoughtfully, the weight of leadership pressing heavily on his shoulders. "This is our chance, Sarah. We need to press our advantage, but we also need to consider our next steps carefully. The cost has been high, and we can't afford to underestimate them again." The room fell silent as Briggs's words sank in. Every person present had lost friends, comrades and loved ones. The scars of the conflict were both visible and hidden deep within their hearts. As the strategic discussions continued, a sudden alert from the perimeter sensors interrupted the meeting. Briggs and his officers rushed to the control room, where a live feed showed an approaching Zalorian delegation. At the forefront was Vrocka, flanked by a small contingent of heavily armed guards, yet their weapons were holstered, a clear sign of truce. "What do you think they're up to?" Mitchell asked, her brow furrowing in suspicion. "We're about to find out," Briggs replied, a mix of curiosity and caution in his tone. "Prepare a welcoming party, but keep it tight. We don't want to show any signs of weakness." Minutes later, the human delegation met the Zalorians in a neutral zone amidst the ruins of a public square. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the distant sounds of ongoing skirmishes. Vrocka stepped forward, his expression unreadable but his posture indicating a desire for dialogue. "General Briggs," Vrocka began, his voice carrying a tone of respect, "we have come to discuss terms." Briggs raised an eyebrow, intrigued but wary. "Terms? I find it hard to believe that the Zalorian Empire, after all this, is interested in negotiations." Vrocka's orange eyes met Briggs with a steady gaze. "The death of Supreme Commander Zalkar has created a power vacuum. Our forces are in disarray, and continued conflict would be costly for both sides. We propose a ceasefire to discuss a potential alliance." The suggestion hung in the air, unexpected and almost surreal. An alliance with their invaders. The idea seemed preposterous, yet the sincerity in Vrocka's tone suggested a genuine opportunity. Briggs glanced at his officers, who wore expressions of shock and skepticism. He turned back to Vrocka, his mind racing with the implications. "What do you hope to gain from this alliance?" Vrocka straightened, his demeanor resolute. "Survival. The Zalorian Empire is vast, but we are not without our own enemies. This war has shown us that humanity possesses strengths we did not anticipate. Together we could be formidable against common threats." Briggs considered the proposal, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on him. The city lay in ruins, and the human toll had been immense. An alliance could offer a reprieve, a chance to rebuild and recover, but could they trust the Zalorians, who had brought so much destruction to their world? "Your proposal is unexpected," Briggs said carefully, "but we are not without our own conditions. We will consider a ceasefire, but only if you agree to withdraw your forces from all human territories immediately and assist in the rebuilding efforts." Vrocka inclined his head. "Agreed. We will also share our technology and knowledge to aid in your recovery. This alliance must be built on mutual benefit and trust." The tentative agreement was a historic moment, a fragile bridge between two species that had been locked in mortal combat. As the ceasefire took effect, human and Zalorian forces began to withdraw from the front lines. The immediate relief was palpable, a collective sigh of respite from the relentless conflict. In the days that followed, the two sides worked together, albeit cautiously. Zalorian engineers assisted in repairing critical infrastructure, their advanced technology speeding up the recovery process. Human medics treated wounded Zalorian soldiers, breaking down barriers of mistrust one act of kindness at a time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez found herself collaborating with Zalorian scientists, a partnership that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. They worked tirelessly to address the environmental damage caused by the conflict, their combined expertise yielding promising results. "It's strange, isn't it?" Rodriguez remarked to her new Zalorian colleague, a scientist named Threx, as they examined the readings from a joint cleanup operation. "A few days ago we were enemies. Now we're working together to heal the planet." Threx nodded, his expression thoughtful. "War has a way of blinding us to the potential of cooperation. Perhaps this alliance is the true victory we needed." Despite the cautious optimism, not everyone welcomed the new alliance. In hidden enclaves, pockets of human resistance refused to accept the ceasefire, their hatred for the Zalorians too deep to be easily overcome. Likewise, some Zalorian soldiers harbored resentment towards the humans, viewing the alliance as a betrayal of their fallen leader's vision. General Briggs and Vrocker both understood that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. They convened regularly to address concerns, their discussions marked by a growing respect and understanding. "Trust is not built overnight," Briggs said during one such meeting, "but if we can find a way to coexist, we might just forge a future where both our species can thrive." Vrocker nodded in agreement. "It will take time and effort from both sides, but we have seen what humans are capable of. Your resilience, your ingenuity. Together, we can face whatever threats lie ahead." As the alliance solidified, the combined efforts began to yield tangible results. Cities started to rise from the ashes, and a tentative peace settled over the war-torn regions. The scars of battle remained, but so too did the seeds of hope for a better future. For General Briggs and Vrocker, the unexpected alliance represented a turning point not just in the war, but in the history of both species. They had faced each other as enemies, but through cooperation and mutual respect, they had begun to build a foundation for lasting peace. The journey ahead was uncertain, and many challenges remained. But as dawn broke over the recovering city, a new chapter was being written, one where humanity and the Zalorians, once mortal foes, stood together against the darkness, united by a shared vision of survival and prosperity. The war-torn city of New York was slowly beginning to heal. Where once there was only rubble and ruin, now emerged the signs of recovery and renewal. Buildings that had been reduced to skeletal frames were being reconstructed, their new forms standing as symbols of resilience. Streets that had echoed with the sounds of battle now buzzed with the activity of reconstruction, as humans and Zalorians worked side by side. General Marcus Briggs stood on the balcony of what remained of City Hall, overseeing the bustling efforts below. His gaze swept across the horizon, taking in the blend of human and alien technology that was reshaping the cityscape. It was a sight that would have been unimaginable just months ago. "General," came the familiar voice of Colonel Sarah Mitchell. She approached, her uniform pristine despite the ongoing efforts. "The reconstruction is progressing ahead of schedule. The Zalorian technology is making a huge difference." Briggs nodded, a sense of cautious optimism settling over him. "It's remarkable what we've achieved together in such a short time, but we can't afford to become complacent. We need to ensure this alliance remains strong." Mitchell smiled faintly. "Understood, sir. We've scheduled another joint council meeting for tomorrow. We'll be discussing the next phases of integration and cooperation." As Mitchell left, Briggs turned his attention back to the view, contemplating the journey that had brought them to this point. The alliance with the Zalorians had not only halted the invasion, but had also opened the door to unprecedented collaboration. But trust was still a fragile thing, and both sides were acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead. In the newly established Joint Operations Center, representatives from both species gathered around a large holographic table. Supreme Commander Vrocker stood alongside General Briggs, their combined presence a testament to the new era of cooperation. The room hummed with the quiet conversations of diplomats, scientists and military leaders, all working towards a common goal. "Let's begin," Vrocker announced, his voice carrying a tone of authority that commanded attention. "We have much to discuss regarding the next steps in our alliance." Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her Zalorian counterpart Threx presented the latest advancements in their joint environmental restoration projects. Using a combination of human ingenuity and Zalorian technology, they had developed methods to accelerate the recovery of ecosystems devastated by the conflict. "We've seen significant improvements in air and water quality," Rodriguez explained, pointing to a series of holographic projections. "By integrating Zalorian bioengineering techniques with our own environmental science, we've managed to reverse much of the damage." Threx added, "These methods can be replicated on a global scale, ensuring that both our worlds benefit from this collaboration." The room filled with murmurs of approval and cautious optimism. The success of these projects was a tangible sign of what could be achieved through unity and shared purpose. As the meeting continued, discussions shifted to the integration of Zalorian technology into human infrastructure. Engineers and scientists from both species exchanged ideas, working through the complexities of merging two distinct technological paradigms. "We need to ensure that the integration is seamless and benefits both our societies," an engineer remarked, his holographic display showing plans for a hybrid power grid that would draw from both human and Zalorian energy sources. Briggs and Vrocker listened intently, their focus unwavering. They knew that these discussions were more than just technical details. They were laying the foundation for a future where their species would coexist and thrive. Outside the Joint Operations Center, the streets reflected the spirit of this new alliance. Human and Zalorian children played together, their laughter a poignant reminder of the potential for peace and unity. Marketplaces thrived with a mix of goods from both worlds, and cultural exchanges fostered a deeper understanding between the two species. Amidst this hopeful atmosphere, there were still those who harbored doubts and resentment. Some humans found it difficult to forget the devastation wrought by the Zalorian invasion, while certain Zalorian factions viewed the alliance as a betrayal of their fallen leader, Zalkar's vision. These undercurrents of tension were a constant reminder of the fragility of their newfound peace. Briggs and Vrocker addressed these challenges head-on, organizing community forums and open dialogues to foster reconciliation. They knew that lasting peace required more than just political agreements. It needed the hearts and minds of their people to truly change. One evening, as the sun set over the recovering city, Briggs and Vrocker stood on the rooftop of the Joint Operations Center, reflecting on their journey. The skyline was a mix of human and Zalorian architecture, a testament to the blending of their cultures. "We've come a long way, Marcus," Vrocker said, his tone contemplative. "But we must remain vigilant. True unity requires constant effort and understanding." Briggs nodded in agreement. "You're right. But seeing our people work together, seeing the progress we've made, it's a powerful reminder of what's possible. We can't afford to let old wounds fester. We have to keep moving forward, together." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Rodriguez and Threx, who had come to share more good news about their environmental projects. The four of them stood together, looking out over the city, each feeling a sense of accomplishment and cautious hope for the future. As night fell, the city lights illuminated the skyline, a symbol of resilience and renewal. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if acknowledging the efforts of those below. The journey towards lasting peace and unity was far from over, but with each passing day the bond between humans and Zalorians grew stronger. In the days and weeks that followed, the alliance continued to flourish. New projects were initiated, focusing on education, healthcare, and cultural exchange. Schools began teaching both human and Zalorian history, fostering a new generation that valued cooperation and mutual respect. General Briggs and Supreme Commander Vrocker worked tirelessly to ensure that the progress they had made would endure. They knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were determined to face them together. As the sun rose on a new day, casting its warm glow over the recovering city, The people of Earth and the Zalorian Empire looked to the future with a sense of hope and possibility. They had faced each other as enemies, but through cooperation and shared purpose, they had forged an alliance that promised a brighter tomorrow. The war had tested their strength and resolve, but it had also revealed the potential for unity and collaboration. Together, they would rebuild and create a future where both species could thrive, side by side, under the same sky. The journey was far from over, but with each step forward, they moved closer to a new horizon, one where peace and prosperity were not just dreams, but a reality they had built together.